In today's episode, loaded first. As you wish. Work starts at 9, not 9:15. A machine at the grocery store I work in malfunctioned. My manager decided it was my problem. So let's get started. Loaded first. As you wish. On the phone is my only excuse. I've been working with logistics for about 17 years now and gained a bunch of experience. My main occupation has been in a port loading and discharging RoRo vessels. Most of those have a ramp in the aft which all loading/discharging goes through, unlike passenger ferries where you can open a hatch in the fore since it's easier to drive on and then drive off. Some 12 to 13 years ago, a VIP customer for a truck manufacturer called our office. I got the call and informed me he'd gotten the number from the agency because he had certain instructions for the loading of a special truck. Okay, so I hear him out. Turns out this truck is going on exhibition somewhere on the continent and is a bit late from the factory. To save some time, he had hired some photographer that would take some photos of the truck when it rolled of the vessel in the receiving port. He was very insistent that we load it first, so it would come of first. Now in the business we have a term for express cargo that is LOFO. Last on, first off. Which means we load the unit last on deck, and so that it will be first off. And this I explained to him, but he insisted we load it first. Probably thinking we operated passenger ferries while in fact we operated cargo vessels. So I once again tried to explain, but he would not listen. I finally just gave in and said okay, I'll load it first, thinking I will load it last to make sure it comes off first thing. We hang up. So I thought that was it, now I can plan the rest of the operation and mind my own business. Moments later, agency called and told me the customer had called them being very concerned his unit won't be loaded first. Now I know the people on the agency very well since we talk several times on a daily basis, and they know me also. And they also know how the vessels are designed and in which order operations go. So they also tried to explain, but the customer still insisted. Now I also got some additional information about the photographer in the receiving port. He was hired by the hour, so it was important he does not need to wait in vain. So we agree that we load the truck according to LOFO principle for the sake of the customer. He does not need to know. Time passes, vessel arrives, and we start operation. The truck also enters the port. It looked kind of cool, kit with everything extra you could think of. Also, the customer calls and asks why we have not loaded the truck yet. See, there is a GPS unit in it which will let the customer know of any movements. So I explain we are still discharging and can't load it yet. Customer, but the vessel arrived an hour ago. I see no point in trying to explain since he's all railed up, so I just tell him we're going to start loading soon. He hangs up. Moments later the agency calls again. Obviously he has been bugging them, and they just WSNT to let off some steam. So we laugh a bit about it, and then we decide to move the truck onto the vessel, so that his damn GPS will make a ping. Right after we hung up, the customer calls again and demand we load the truck now. No. Okay, we will load it now, I say, and I hang up, somewhat annoyed by now. I'm used to this behavior. In logistics it seemed that the one making the most noise gets their way. I never take it personally, and I don't really care. I always try to make the best solution for everyone. Anyhow. Now the manager for the agency calls me and want to know why the customer is so railed up. So I explain to him, and he's like okay with the explanation. He knows me and know that what I'm saying is correct, but asks me to hurry up with the loading. So I radio one of the stevedores to put the truck somewhere on main deck where it won't be in the way. We will move it later, so that it will be positioned as one of the first units off. Customer calls a few minutes later since the GPS probably reported movement and goes something like this. Now this was not so hard, was it? I should not have to call managers to get shit done around here, should I? I idly reply with a dry, "You're welcome," and hangs up. Now I'm actually annoyed for real. Sometime later the stevedores let me know they've emptied the lower hold, the part that takes longest to discharge but is quickest to load. So I tell them to put the truck in the deepest corner of lower hold. Customer should be satisfied with it being loaded first, as per request. So we fill the rest of the vessel, I send a report to my manager and the agency what happened and goes home. 36 hours later the vessel arrives in the receiving port. Photographer is in place, also the customer, I got told later on. I can only imagine how boring the wait must have been. Week later the agency received a written complaint from the customer that he had to pay the photographer for the waiting. But it felt kind of low effort. Not a word on loaded first. I think the customer finally understood and learned his lesson. Years later I actually met the customer in person, and he turned out to be a really nice person. We've had many dealings with each other since then. I even asked if he remembered the truck incident. He did. It was his first big assignment, and he was so stressed out about it. Go figure. Anyway, we have a good relationship between us, agency, port, and customer now. Work starts at 9, not 9:15. Many years ago, I used to work as a web developer at a medical center where the types of people in that org were, let's say, tenured. Many comfortable people who have been working there for 8+ years. Not the least of all was our manager who had been there for 20+ years and fancied herself a dictator. I was the youngest there, followed by the other developer. Engineering was a team of 2, myself included. We had content creators, support people, designers, etc. But the engineering was just me and this other person, we'll call her Lucy. Lucy and I would show up around the same time every day between 9 and 9:30. NBD, we thought, since we typically ate quick lunches at our desk and stayed long after 5 to actually get some focus time in and get stuff done. Our manager typically showed up early around 7:30 or 8, and would leave the office at 3:30 or 4 to skip traffic. Now, at some point, our manager was on some sort of power trip and decided it was necessary to call a full team meeting to inform us that work starts at 9, not 9:15, not 9:30, but 9. Me being a young smart A*S decided to fight this tyranny and asked her what time does work end, to which she very calmly stated 5. So I asked how come she leaves at 4. And she explained that she shows up early and therefore gets to leave early. I was on autopilot because the next thing I said was, but I thought work starts at 9, so how come you show up early? She explained that she's made a special arrangements with the higher-ups and therefore she is exempt from the rule. So Lucy and I dropped it, but we decided to show up exactly at 9 every day, take a full hour for lunch, and leave exactly at 5. Meetings all day and work due tomorrow? Sorry, but work ends at 5. Working on an issue where stopping halfway means it would take longer to pick it up tomorrow? Sorry, but work ends at 5. About a month of this and our backlog is piling up, our clients are complaining, and my manager is fuming at our reduced output. She sits us down and asks us why this is happening. We calmly explain that with meetings, an hour lunch, and work starting at 9 and ending at 5, there's just not enough time in the day to get stuff done. She dropped the policy the next day, and instead issued a core hours policy of 10 to 3 where everyone is expected to be in the office then. A machine at the grocery store I work in malfunctioned. My manager decided it was my problem. The machine that takes in the bottles that have a deposit fee on them was broken. The machine couldn't scan the bottles, so the customers wouldn't get their money back. A customer told me about it, so I told my manager. He told me that I should take care of it because he was on break and the customers came to me. I told the customer that I couldn't help her, and that she needed to come back some other time when it was fixed. My manager said that handling things in that way was also not acceptable. I started to get a little bit infuriated, so I decided to go back to the work I was supposed to do. Customers kept on coming to me with the same problem, so I went back to the manager who literally told me, "You are at work, customers complain to you, it's your problem." I told my coworkers about it. They told me that has happened before, and that a mechanic was required to fix the problem. My manager got angry at me because I told him this. He told me that I needed to find a solution to the problem, or I would get fired. I started thinking what I could do to fix it, but I couldn't figure it out, since I work at a grocery store as a 17-year-old who has never fixed something like this. Then, my stubborn side took over, so I decided to fix the problem my way. I took a broom and punched a hole in the seal that keeps the bottles from falling down. Then, I put a big plastic bag on the other side of the machine for the bottles to fall into. My manager lost it and told me I need to fix it in a better way right now. So I put the plastic bag in his hands and told the 12 customers that were waiting for the machine to work to give their bottles to my manager, and he would take care of it. The manager then sent me home as he was raging and yelling at everyone. The next day I had to work again, and the mechanic was there to fix it. He told me that I made the situation with the machine worse, but that he had to laugh when he heard the story about my manager. I then heard that my manager got fired by his boss for losing his cool, and that I handled the situation very well. To this day I still wonder what story was told to the boss, but I still have my job, and the manager is long gone. Thanks for watching.